Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's author webinar. My name is Chandni, and I'm part of the Learning and Content Management team. So joining with me are my colleagues Anita, Jennifer, Sridevi, and Julian. So before we begin, a few housekeeping items to remember. So firstly, please take a few moments to complete the poll you will see on your screens. If you have a question at any time during the content of the session, please use the Q&A option to send your question directly to us. So we will try to answer as many as possible during the session today in the Q&A channel. If we cannot answer all the questions, we will reply to you directly after the session unless you post the question anonymously. We'll also cover some of the questions at the end of the session today. For the best view, you may wish to drag the central bar on your screen to the right to enlarge the screen that we are sharing. And you may also wish to enable the live transcripts via the bar on the bottom of the screen. Finally, our session is being recorded and you will be sent a link when the recording is ready. So now let's look at our agenda for today. So we will start by giving you an overview of the author submission process in Editorial Manager. Please note that the steps may vary depending on the journal configuration and the type of article being submitted. We will also have a look at how to use the declaration tool when submitting a manuscript. Elsevier's declaration tool quickly and easily helps authors to create a comprehensive statement which incorporates the ICMGE, otherwise International Committee of Medical Journal Editors declaration standards. This declaration tool will produce a statement in a Word form that is in line with the standards and that can be uploaded alongside your manuscript, which will appear in your published article. So finally, we will also provide you a brief explanation of the various editorial statuses your submission may progress through in Editorial Manager. So now let's get into Editorial Manager test site and explore the author submission process. Please know that I'm going to be using our training site for the demonstration today with dummy users and dummy submissions. The training site is a great replica of the live environment, but it will look slightly different to your own profile. So don't worry if you don't get to see things today that you normally see when you log into your profile. So this may be due to the rights and permissions that are granted for authors, and that will vary from journal to journal. So now let's switch over to Editorial Manager. I hope you're able to see my screen. Anita, can you please confirm?
Yes, all clear, Chandni.
Thank you so much, Anita. So we are on Editorial Manager, and I have logged in as an author. So before submitting a manuscript, please check the journal requirements via the instructions to authors link that you can find on the banner image, or you can also access this link from your journal homepage. So this will contain instructions or guidelines on manuscript word counts, file requirements, and other important information for your submission. So it is important to familiarize yourself with the journal. So once you are ready to begin the submission process, you can click on the Submit New Manuscript button here. So if you have already started submitting a manuscript but not yet submitted to the journal, you may wish to pick it up from here. But however, if you want to start the submission process all over again, click on the Start New Manuscript button. So we are at the article type selection stage. So this is the first point of the submission process. So here we are going to select the relevant article type from the drop-down menu. So if you are submitting to a special issue, please ensure that you select the appropriate special issue article type, because there may be more than one special issue progressing through the journal. So please make sure that you select the right special issue article type from the drop-down here. So at this point, the system will automatically ask authors to link your submission to the Orcid account You may either wish to do it now, or you will be prompted later in the system, later in the submission process, to link your Orcid account before you submit your paper to the journal. So once you are ready, click on the proceed button here. So please attach all the files that you wish to include within your submission in the attach files step. So you may use the browse option here to access your computer's file list, or simply use drag and drop a file from your computer to attach them on Editorial Manager. So for any submission, manuscript is going to be mandatory. So let's start with that one. So I'm simply going to use the browse option here to select the manuscript file from my computer list. So when you click on this drop-down menu, you can also see there are other file types that are available, and all the mandatory file types will be marked with an asterisk symbol. So you may also see something called declaration of interest. So this is mandatory for some journals and it is optional for some, but in either events, such a statement is mandatory from an ethics perspective. So we also have a short video that is available on how to use the declaration tool in Editorial Manager, the link of which will be posted in the chat box for you now. So now I'm going to quickly upload this. So we will come back to discuss on how to create the declaration of interest statement a little later. So I'm uploading the declaration statement here. So we also have other file types. So authors can upload any figures or tables, whichever is appropriate for your manuscript that supports the data that you're going to submit to the journal. So we also see there's something called cover letter. So if you wish to include something like this along with your submission and you don't find any instructions in Guide for Authors, it's nothing but a brief letter that introduces your manuscript to a prospective editor. In this letter, you can specify any special consideration that needs to be given to your manuscript, a brief background on the research or the data involved, details of any previous or concurrent submissions, and things like that. So all of that can be uploaded as a cover letter along with your submission. So once the required files have been attached to the submission, you can find them below. So it is also possible for authors to check the file types using this drop-down menu. And you can also use this description box if you would like to edit the name of the file, but please make sure that there are no personal identifiers used here. So the system will automatically order the files into the order that is designated by the journal. So there's no manual work that needs to be done from the authors. So once all the files have been uploaded, click on the proceed button. So the general information tab here, so this step will have differing requirements depending on your journal. So you may be asked to select the region of origin, section category, and classifications that are related to your submission. So let's go through it one by one. So authors can select the region of origin from the drop-down menu. And then go ahead with selecting the section category, whichever is appropriate for your manuscript. And then we go into the classifications here. So the classifications are fixed terms that are created for the journal, and these are different from the keywords. So keywords are free text that users can add in the manuscript data step, which we will see in a moment. Once you have come to this particular step, if you notice that there is a red symbol, a red triangle, which is kind of a caution, then this means that it is a mandatory field for authors to enter information. So here we can see that authors are supposed to enter at least 3 classification topics for their manuscript. So let's go ahead with adding them for this manuscript. So please identify your manuscript's area of interest or specialization by selecting the classification terms here from the list, and then you can just add them to your manuscript. So finally click on the submit button when you're done. So now we have, so once all the required information is provided in this particular step, you may wish to proceed with the submission. So click on proceed. Okay, so depending on the journal's requirements, you will see there are different options on the review preferences step. So you may have the option to request an editor to handle your paper, and you also see there are suggest potential reviewers for your submission, and also oppose reviewers who you would prefer not to review your submission. So please note that these are preferences only. The editor may or may not use the suggestions. So let's go ahead with selecting them. So again, this is marked with the red caution triangle, which means it is a mandatory field that authors have to provide. So it is compulsory that authors have to provide at least one review, suggest at least one reviewer for their submission. So I go ahead with adding a reviewer. So please make sure that you provide the first name, last name, and the institution and email of the reviewer. So whichever field that is marked with the red asterisk symbol means they are mandatory. So once you have filled in the required information about the reviewer, click on the small floppy disk icon here. So this will save the reviewer details to your submission. So if you would like to save this option and then add on more reviewers, then click on this second floppy disk icon with the plus symbol here. So once you have entered all the required information, click on the proceed button. Okay, so the additional information step presents you with a questionnaire, which the journal uses to collect useful information from authors. So please respond to each of these questions as appropriate by selecting your options from the drop-down list. So once you're done, please click on the proceed button. So the comments section here provides authors with an opportunity to enter any additional comments for the journal office. Please note that these are not comments to the editor. So these comments will not appear directly in your submission. So you may wish to enter any comments here or just proceed without entering any comments. Okay, so the system will automatically pull some data from the manuscript file attached, and it will pre-populate some of the fields on the manuscript data step here, but authors are required to check and validate them accordingly. So in this case, I'm just going to change the title a bit and then scroll down. So we see the abstract is automatically extracted from the manuscript file uploaded. But however, the word count is a bit, it's not appropriate for the journal. So you may wish to make any changes at this point here. So it must automatically meet the journal requirements. And this is the keywords. So where the keywords will be automatically extracted from the manuscript if authors have mentioned them on the manuscript file. Otherwise, authors can enter any free text as I mentioned before. And at the author stage, it is important that all authors of the submissions are included. So again, you see there is a caution symbol that is available at this particular step. So please enter all authors of the submission, including their name, current contact email address, and institution. So here we see that the corresponding author or the person who's currently submitting the manuscript has some information missing. So click on this triangle option here. And then we see that the contributing roles are missing. So we need to select how this particular author has contributed to this research data. And then click on the floppy disk icon, which will save the information on the system. So now let's go ahead and add another co-author. So at this particular step, it is essential to choose your institution from the drop down, as you might be eligible for institutional or society discounts that can reduce your article publishing charges for gold open access. So please refer to this small Pender tooltip that will serve as a guideline while you enter the institution details for any particular author. So always remember to choose from the available choices here, or authors can also enter any institution which is not found automatically. So now we need to select the contributor role. So how did this person contribute to this manuscript? And then click on the save button here. So once co-authors are added to the manuscript, they will be automatically receive an email notification from the journal. So you may also wish to reorder this list. If you want to do so, you can just hold on to the grid option here and just move around your mouse to change the order. So once you are done with entering the author details, click on the next button here. So please add the funding information for your research. And click on this floppy disk icon to save the funding information on the system. If you do not have any funding information at this point, then you can always tick this checkbox here that no funding information is available at this point. So if you would like to save your submission details, you can always click on the save and submit later button here, and you can come back to this particular step later if you would like to submit the submission a bit later. But if you would like to proceed with submitting the manuscript to the journal, go ahead with building the PDF for approval. So the PDF is getting built for the current submission. So before authors could see, once the PDF is being built, we will automatically see there is a view submission option that is available. So while the PDF is getting built, the system might automatically refresh every now and then. But I have already submitted a test paper here to take you through the steps. So before authors could view the submission PDF, it is necessary that authors read through the ethics in publishing link here and then accept to the guidelines by clicking on the I accept checkbox. So it is important that you click on the view submission button, and only then you will be able to approve your submission to the journal. So once you click on the view submission, you will be able to see the downloaded copy of the PDF that is built for your submission. You can go through it in detail, and then finally, by clicking on the approve submission, your manuscript will be submitted to the journal for consideration, and you will automatically receive an email confirmation. So in case you would like to edit your submission file at this point, you will have to contact the journal manager, who will be able to assist you with updating your submission files. So as I mentioned to you previously, if you haven't entered your Orcid details, the system will automatically prompt authors to do so at this point before you approve your submission. So either you can do it now or you can just close it. So now let's go back to the main menu. So once the paper has been submitted to the journal, it will automatically come into the folder called submissions being processed. So from here, authors will be able to track the status of the manuscript submitted. So in the second part of today's webinar, we are going to look at the declaration tool in more detail. So as I mentioned before, for some journals, this is a mandatory file type. So transparent disclosure of potential competing interest is essential to meet your ethical obligation and also nurture trust in science. So Elsevier now offers a declaration tool in Editorial Manager that quickly and easily helps authors create a comprehensive statement which incorporates the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, otherwise ICMG, declaration standards. So this statement can be uploaded as a Word file alongside your manuscript, and it will appear in your published article. So the declaration tool can be accessed through the guide for authors here, as well as from the attach file step in each of the submissions. So I'm just going to click the new submit new manuscript option here. And I'm going to go to the attach file step to show you where exactly you can locate that. So on the on the left-hand side, you can see a small box with the declaration of interest statement. And we have also published a short video on how to use this particular tool to create a declaration of interest statement. So authors can also watch this video, and a link of this video will be shared in the chat box for you now. So now let's click on the declaration of interest link. Anita, I hope you're able to see the declaration of interest homepage. Okay.
Yes, Charlie.
Thank you so much. Okay. So you will be taken to this declaration tool homepage here. So here you can, here you can read further information about how to declare your interest. Okay. And when you are ready, you can begin your declaration by clicking on the Start My Declaration button here. Please know that for some journals, the button "I have nothing to declare" will be present and should obviously only be used to directly generate a statement when you are 100% confident that you and your co-authors have nothing to declare at this point. For other journals where this button is not available, you can indicate that you have nothing to declare in each page as we progress. So when you are ready to begin, then click on the Start My Declaration button here. Okay. So on the first page, research support for this reported work. So you can declare any support you or any of your co-authors have received from certain types of third parties since the initial conception of your research. Note that you don't need to list any academic institutions or public funding sources from charitable foundations or government agencies here. So start filling in the details of the organization by just typing the organization name here. and then selecting any relevant financial or non-financial support that was provided by this organization. So you will also need to add who received this particular support, whether it is the corresponding author or the co-author. So I have selected the corresponding author here. And if you wish to add another funding source, then just click on the add another funding source here. So if your research did not receive any additional support, then that should be declared here. You may just use the toggle button to toggle this particular option off. Okay. So now I proceed with the next option. Okay, so if you would like to save the declaration for later and come back to it within the next 30 days, you can just click on this button here, save declaration for later. But if you would like to go ahead and mention the support that you have received under this particular option, just go ahead with submitting the details here. Okay, I think we will have to enter the name of the corresponding author, sorry. Okay, so under the relevant support outside this reported work, you should disclose if you or any of your co-authors have any financial interest or personal relationships related to the subject matter, but not directly to the manuscript. The time frame for other support should be within the last 3 years. Again, fill in the relevant fields that are applicable for your research, or if there is nothing that you need to disclose, you can just toggle off this button here and then move on with clicking on the intellectual property. Okay, so in this particular step, the patents and intellectual property, so this will allow you to disclose any relevant patents or copyrights licensed to you or any of your co-authors. So once you have either filled this in or just pressed in the toggle button to indicate that you have nothing to declare, then you can just proceed with clicking on the next other activities here. So the other activities is the final page of the declaration tool, where you can submit any further information that a reader could perceive to have influenced the work that has not been covered in the previous pages. So once you have either filled this in, or again, if you wish to toggle this off to indicate that you have nothing to declare, you can click on the review declaration button here. So this screen will summarize all the information that you have provided so far. You may click on the back button here if there is anything that you want to go back and edit, or just click on the submit and download button here if you are happy with the content provided. So at this step, the system will offer authors the option to enter your email address to save your declaration statement on Editorial Manager. You will receive the same prompt if you wish to save your inputs at any time while using this tool. If you do this, you will be prompted to enter a one-time password, and you can then download your declaration. So this will give authors a window period of 30 days to come back to this tool and download the declaration statement anytime. However, alternatively, you can also click on no thanks, I don't want to download a declaration without saving it. Just click on this particular link here. So the declaration tool has now been created using the information entered by the author, which can now be downloaded and then uploaded to Editorial Manager as a Word file along with other submission files for your manuscript. So after you have downloaded the file, you can simply upload it, as I said before. So if you choose to save your declaration, you can also access it from the home screen of the declaration tool here for the next 30 days by clicking on the access with one-time password that you see just below need an existing declaration. So if you want to know more about this tool, we will be hosting a link to the video on how to use this particular tool to create your declaration interest of statement, which will be posted on the chat box once again for you. So this is how you use the declaration tool in Editorial Manager. So in the last part of this webinar, I will be giving you a brief explanation of the various editorial statuses your submission may progress through in Editorial Manager. So for which I'm going to go back to my presentation. So Anita, I hope you're able to see everything clear.
Yes, Jenny. Yes, Jenny.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much, Anita. So once an author finishes writing his paper and submits it to the journal, the system shows the status of the manuscript as manuscript submitted. So based on the workflow of the journal, the editorial office or the editor will perform a technical check on your manuscript. So they will check the manuscript word count, format, and figure quality, etc. if it matches with the journal requirements. At this point, it can also be returned back to the author for making any corrections as needed. So once the paper has passed through the technical check, the next step is assigning it either to the editor-in-chief or to an associate editor for further handling. So journals usually have multiple associate editors who are experts in a particular niche within the broader subject area. So your manuscript will be handled by the editor who has the highest level of understanding and experience with your paper research topic. So the status remains with editor until the editor either makes a decision or invites reviewers. The handling editor has a different action choices: make a desk reject, send the paper for revision, or invite reviewers. The editor conducts an initial screening of your paper and assesses it against several criteria such as novelty, priority, and scope. If your paper is a better match for another journal, you will be offered a manuscript transfer. Also, it's possible that your paper does not meet some of the assessment criteria that I just mentioned. And then at this point, the editor will reject it before going it into the peer review. If the editor decides that your paper is a good match for their journal, they will identify 2 or 3 independent reviewers, depending on the journal configuration, and send them an invitation to review your manuscript. So when the editor invites reviewers, the status of the manuscript changes to under review. Once the required number of reviews are received and recommendations were submitted, the status of the manuscript will show as required reviews completed. So the handling editor then carefully studies the review reports. It can happen that the referee reports are conflicting, in which case the editor needs to find an additional reviewer. When this happens, your submission will return back to the under review status. When the editor has received enough high quality feedback from the reviewers, they will begin the decision making process and the status will automatically get upgraded to decision in process. The decision may need to be confirmed by multiple editor in some journals. The manuscript will move back to the editor-in-chief's account for making the final decision. So the editor-in-chief submits his or her decision and notifies the author, in which case revise means that the editor has requested that you revise the submission. You will find the details of the changes required and the deadline for submitting your revision in the decision letter sent. And accept or reject means that the submission process has been completed with either an accept or reject decision. In this case of an accept decision, the manuscript will begin its production process and you will receive further information from us. So transfer pending. So this decision term means that the editor has rejected your paper and suggested to transfer it. The editor has recommended the submission to be transferred to another journal via our automatic article transfer service, and you are offered a transfer. So we will await your response before proceeding, at which stage the status will show as transfer pending. So once you have accepted the transfer and the submission is now transferred to another journal, the status will automatically show as submission transferred. So we have also published a video on the submission status explainer, which will explain how your submission progresses after submitting the manuscript to the journal. And the link of this video will now be posted on the chat box. So we have now introduced a submission tracker tool to more than 2000 plus journals. So once a journal is using a submission tracker, an email is automatically sent to the corresponding author when the first reviewer is invited. So as you can see from this screenshot, the email contains a link to the submission tracker landing page where the author can view the status of the review process for their submission. Note that the same link will remain active throughout end-to-end peer review process. So we expect to have the submission tracker tool available to all journals in the near future. So the submission tracker landing page for a submission looks as shown here. So from here, you can monitor the complete status of your manuscript, such as how many review invitations were sent, how many of those invitations were accepted or declined, and how many reviews have been completed so far. Okay, so the purpose of the background is to make your readers understand the objective and importance of your paper. So sometimes a detailed context is required for a better understanding, and sometimes the context can be stated even in fewer words. So how should one write the background of a research paper? So when writing a good background, keep in mind the following points. A strong beginning. Begin the background by defining the research topic and then identify the targeted audience. Cover the key components. Explain any theories, concepts, terms, and ideas that may feel unfamiliar to the targeted audience. Take a note of the important prerequisites. Go through the relevant literature in detail. Take notes while reading and cite the sources. So that brings us to the end of our webinar today. So thank you so much for listening. So after this session, we will send you an email that will contain some helpful links to the webinar recording and some of the short video guides that relate directly to the topic today. So please look out for that email. Please now, so I have already mentioned about the poll, which you can see on your screen. So please take a few moments to give us your feedback and comments about the session. So your answers will help us deliver more webinars like this. So thank you for joining once again.